Anytime you're ready.
Let's go! Woo! Yeah.
Oh, God, this is moment. 25 centuries yesterday. You can care all you want. Everybody does, and it's okay. So slide me and give me a moment. Yes, I see. I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know. You're my kind. I need you tonight. 'Cause I'm not sleeping. There's something about you, girl, that makes me sweat. I'm lonely, can't think at all. Gonna live my life.
All right, let's go! Woo!
I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know.
Nikki, where's Teddy?
Carrie?
Hey, Tommy, would you please come up and take it?
Are you ready, Bill and Brad? Trying to embarrass you. All right. Anybody ever hear of a guy named Tommy Peters? He has a few words to say.
It'll be brief, but they were discussing dinner at BB King's or Itabina. Itabina is a restaurant we have above BB's that you actually go up the back fire escape on 2nd. There's a blue awning with no signage, and that's intentional because we really don't want people knowing about it. It will be very busy, but it's not full. I thought it was privately bought out tonight, but it's not. But Itabina is a nice, mellow place with piano, soft piano music where you can talk. BB's is a loud, fun, boisterous place that we will have much louder music, and it's hard to talk. Totally different menus. We welcome both. I've told our door people to watch. I mean, they're both crowded places, but they're going to do everything they can to work with y'all. But anyway, the Rendezvous down this alley is real good. It's different, but it's the most famous barbecue place in Memphis, right across Union from the Peabody.
What's different about it?
Rendezvous started in 1947 or 8. It's Greek, but they have dry ribs. Now, we serve wet or dry, but dry means there's no wet sauce on it. Cheese plates are the best thing at the Rendezvous. It's a sausage and cheese plate that's real good. That's why I go there. But it's good. Gus's fried chicken is real good. That's a few blocks over from BB's, but it's fabulous, and it's always crowded. Blue City Cafe across from us is good. But I do, when people try to decide has anybody ever heard of Albert King, the guitarist? Albert was from here, and he's probably the greatest influence on Eric Clapton. And people ask me, they used to let him eat free at Blue City. And they asked me, could we eat at Blue City or BB's? And I said, well, Blue City is good, but Albert King died after eating a full rack of ribs at Blue City. So, but it's a good place too. And there's a whole lot of other really great restaurants around. No, BB's, you got live music. Rum Boogie is a good place to go down the street on the corner from us. They have good live music. Blue City has a little place next to it that has music, but you don't eat in there. But anyway, thank y'all.
Well, I thought we would help Tommy try to do a raise hand. If you wanted, if who thinks that they might go to BB King's and who might go to either.
Well, but I don't want y'all to have a bad experience because it's going to be crowded, and I don't want to. I want y'all to go. Don't get me wrong. And we'll try to get y'all in.
The upstairs place.
I prefer the upstairs place. Now, we had 150 reservations tonight. We have 110 seats, but it turns, and you'll probably be able to get in there easier. That's Itabena, and when I got, that's been there 11 years. I always wanted to have a place up there because I've gotten too old for BB's. You can actually sit up there and talk. And that building, it's about 120 years old. The upstairs was the Black Professional Building in Memphis. It housed the black attorney, dentist, insurance agent, architect for years. In the early 60s, the attorney was a guy named Odell Horton who became a federal district judge. But interestingly, and I went to Ole Miss, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from here. Odell Horton was the attorney who represented James Meredith to integrate Ole Miss in 1962. So all of the calls to the Justice Department and Bobby Kennedy emanated from our second floor. So, interesting. Show of hands, anybody? I mean, everybody.
Who's going to BB King? Show of hands, BB King.
Ah, we can handle that. We can put together. Itabena.
Show of hands, Itabena.
Can someone just write their name down and write your names on something and I'll get, Matt Williams is our general manager. Young asked for him and.
Write your name down, give it to Terry.
Yeah. And then write your name down at BB's and we'll make sure that y'all get seated and taken care of nicely. Okay.
You're good with it, we're good.
Thank you very much. And just, if you don't like it, please don't get on social media. So that son of a gun.
Let's hear it for Tommy. Woo! Okay. So many opportunities to make donations to charity. Lots and lots of good ones. We haven't officially adopted any, but unofficially, Opportunity International is our international choice. We've done a lot for it. And then Best Buddies for on the domestic front. So somehow I learned about Opportunity International, Lillian. I think through Gary Baker and somebody you had, huh? No, right before Rich. But anyhow, so had an awesome CEO, Vicky Escara, got to know her, and she had a really close friend named Carly. Carly Furion, who ran for president, former CEO of HP, remember that? So anyhow, had that network, and then Carly retired, or semi-retired. I mean, Vicky Escara, and the two, yeah, came in. They both, and Lillian and the new CEO came in to St. Louis. We had some great meetings and went really, really well. And I thought, who would know more about Opportunity International, what they're really doing, the lives they're touching in Lillian. And so, let's give a big welcome to Lillian Covington.
Thank you so much, Tom, and I am greatly honored to be here. Actually, do not feel like I'm a stranger. I know a few people, Dave Fisher down there. I've met a couple of you in St. Louis. There's a lot of feedback. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I was actually asking somebody, every other person here is from St. Louis, right? So why are we in Memphis? And they said that the Eagle Summit actually travels, around the country. So thank you so much, Tom, for inviting me to come and share about Opportunity International, an organization that actually Tom has been involved in and has supported for many, many, many years, and has introduced so many people to the work of Opportunity International. So thank you. I feel at home with like-minded people that do want to make a difference in people's lives. So Opportunity is, for the very first time in human history, today as we sit here and as we gather here, we actually can begin to dream that in our lifetime, not in our children's generation's lifetime or our grandchildren, in our lifetime, we can end extreme global poverty. Can you believe that? And extreme global poverty is defined as people that live on less than $1.90 a day. $1.90. Now, I just had a cup of tea and some chips and little dips on the side, and I'm sure that food costed a lot more than $1.90. But there are people today that live on less than $1.90 a day. And to imagine that in our lifetime, we can end that type of poverty. In 1999, over half of the world's population lived on less than $2 a day. 3 billion people. Fast forward 2012, that number reduced to about 900 million people. Today, it's less than 10% of the population. So when I say that we can end extreme global poverty in our lifetime, we can make it happen. And the World Bank, the IMF, and various groups have actually predicted that if we continue on this trajectory of eradicating extreme global poverty, by the year 2030, it's right around the corner, we will be here. We will have ended extreme global poverty. So who are these people that we are talking about that are living on less than $1.90? The reality is that women are the ones that are mostly affected in countries like where I come from, in Kenya, or in the continent of Africa, and India. For every 10 people that live in poverty, 6 are women. Over 60% of women, or of the total population of people living in extreme global poverty, are women. 2/3 of illiterate people that cannot read or write in this day and age are women. So the face of poverty is the face of a woman. And that is the population or the group of people that organizations like Opportunity International are targeting. Because if we are going to end extreme global poverty, we better work with the majority of people that are affected daily. Women have the greatest potential, untapped potential. Women have a great appetite to provide for their children. And they have the courage to break free from the chronic cycle of poverty. But what is lacking is the opportunity to do that. So people that live in poverty are not necessarily poor because they are lazy, but they lack opportunities. You know, sometimes in some of the places that I come from in Kenya, hard work and resolve sometimes is not enough. For a woman who's not educated, a woman who has got to deal with traditional, cultural things that are going on in the country that keep them locked in that chronic cycle with no end in sight. So they lack that one thing, just the opportunity that each of us in this room, it doesn't matter how that opportunity was packaged. Some of us, you could have inherited it from your parents. Some, it is a friend who really believed in you and in your dream. Some, you had the identification to walk into a bank and ask for a loan. Whatever it is, you had the opportunity. And you used that opportunity to do something with your life. That is what is lacking in the countries that Opportunity International is in. So the aim at Opportunity International is to rally with all the other organizations and end extreme global poverty by the year 2030. We do this by providing financial services. It's very simple. Microloans, very little money, 100, 200, 300, some cases 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. Some of our clients, their businesses have grown to a point where now they can tap into a much larger loan. And guess what? They don't want to go to Citibank. We do have Citibank in Kenya and many other commercial banks, but they tell us, you believed in me when all I needed was $75. And I had no identification. I had no birth certificate. I could not put together a business plan, but you believed in me. Now my business has grown. I need 1,000, 5,000. I don't want to go to a commercial bank. I want to stay with you. So we provide microloans, a safe place for them to save their money, insurance. Yes, we do provide insurance for the people that are living at the bottom of the pyramid. We work through networks in those countries. So Opportunity International is in 22 countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. And in each of those countries, we work with implementing partners that understand the culture, the infrastructure, the people, that we're able to work with them. They mobilize those that live in poverty, and when they come to us, we do provide the services to them. So I've talked about the business loans that we give. We also deal with schools. Believe it or not, education, and if you don't walk away with anything else today, get this. Education is the shortest route to the longest life. In order to address poverty, we have to bring in or plug in education. What Opportunity discovered a couple of years ago is that some of our clients are accessing loans, not necessarily to sell produce in the marketplace. They're not doing carpentry. Some of them actually have schools. Some of these schools could be under a tree. I'm not sure what that is. Hitman? Some of these schools could be under a tree. Some of the school proprietors who are actually clients of Opportunity access these loans to build an extra classroom or to just put a bathroom that is for different genders, boy bathroom, girl bathroom. Because in a lot of these places, especially in the rural areas, girls miss a whole week of school every single month. And so Opportunity is helping these school proprietors tap into the financial service and grow and build schools in those communities. Because guess what? Today, as we are in this room, over 124 million children around the world have never set foot in a classroom. In this day and age, really? 124 million children have never been to school. And for those who are in school, 250 million cannot read or write because the curriculum in those schools is not helping them in any way. So at Opportunity, not only are we giving loans to some of the women and men in the villages to start schools, because in places like Africa, we don't have a lot of public schools like you have in this country. We don't have buses, the yellow buses that you see transporting kids from home to school, school to home. We don't have that. And so a lot of parents don't necessarily send their children to school because there's no school in that village. And that's where these small, we call them affordable private schools for the poor, are mushrooming. Those same parents are the ones that are living on less than $2 a day. So guess what? They're expected to pay school fees for those children because it's not a private school. I mean, it's not a public school. It's an affordable private school. The school fees could be $1 every other week, $2 every other week, but the parents cannot afford it because they could be farmers. They have not harvested their crop, they've not sold their crop, and so they don't have money to pay their school fees. So at Opportunity, we've brought up another product, a school fee loan. The parents can tap into the school fee loan, pay that $2 every other week, and their children are able to go to school. We are also helping farmers. Believe it or not, I keep hearing Africa is can be the bread basket of the world. But Africa cannot even feed itself. People are dying of hunger in Africa, but we have so much land. There is a problem. So at Opportunity, we are providing extension services to farmers. We are providing loans to farmers so they are able to buy good seedlings, fertilizer, coupled with education on how to do better farming so you can get a better yield. So we are addressing the farmers as well. The newest one is with the ultra poor, a group of people that microfinance has also marginalized. These are called the invisible poor. People that are living on even much, much less than that $1.90 a day. People that cannot even tap into a loan. So Opportunity is piloting a program in the Philippines. We're going to start with about 600 families, where we're going to start with giving them an asset. And the asset could be a goat, a cow, a boat, wooden boat, not the ship that we think of, but something to begin to pull them out of being at the bottom of the pyramid. And then from that, business training. Some of them we're going to help them with relief food to try and lift them up to a point where they can begin to tap into a loan and start a business. And once they start that business, they will repay back the asset, so we can help one other family. Opportunity is an organization that does not believe in handouts. We do not give handouts. We give hand-ups. We work with people that are living in poverty to help them where they are and to work with them. So this
Nearly
is just a
1
video
billion
to
people
show
in
you
the
what we
world
do.
live on less than $2 a day. In these poverty-stricken economies, unemployment is a daily reality which can leave people feeling stuck. And the very thing that will get them out, a stable job, is just out of reach. But Opportunity International clients do not sit back and wait for the economy to grow. They are the ones driving it. They're ambitious, intelligent, strong. All they need is an opportunity. Like Carmen, with loans from Opportunity, she grew her factory from 3 people to 30 workers, providing a steady income for parents to feed their families and send their children to school. Or Sindhu, she used her Opportunity loans to grow her local chip business and now provides work for 10 employees. And Regina, who started a school in her community with just 3 students. Loans and support from Opportunity helped Regina build better classrooms and purchase school supplies. Today, she serves 80 children and employs 5 of her neighbours as teachers and staff. Opportunity International provides financial tools and support that enables people to develop or protect good jobs for themselves and their neighbours. With access to credit, you can grow your business. With mobile banking, you can save your hard-earned profits right at your fingertips. In a trust group, you can learn from others how to make better business decisions. With business and skills training, you can become the leader you need to be to stand out in the marketplace. When you give Opportunity, you empower an entrepreneur to raise her head high, make decisions in the household, pull weight in her community, and build a better future for herself and her children. Let's work together to create opportunity for those with the fewest resources, because when people can work their way out of poverty, it can spark positive change for entire communities.
So that's what Opportunity does. It sparks that change in entire communities. Last year, as you can see our numbers, we are actually a proven organization. We do have impact around the globe. 89% of our loans go to women, not because we discriminate, but if you remember at the beginning, I said the face of poverty is the face of a woman. Last year, we served around 4.7 million clients with loans, and 5.9 million have savings accounts in our banks. And, you know, when I talk about a saving account, don't think of your savings account and how much money you have in that account. You know, some of our clients have $10, $5, but they have saved that money for years. And that money has been sitting in a tin, or they've dug a hole in the backyard and have buried that money. But now they can bring it to our banks because, again, the commercial banks will not open accounts for them because they don't have identification. They don't have the minimum amount of money that the commercial banks require. So their options is to keep this money at home. It's not safe, but it's also dead capital. It's not really helping anybody. It's not circulating in the economy. But at Opportunity, you can bring your 50 cents, your $2, however much you have saved, we will open an account for you. So as I said, right now we are about in 22 countries around the world. So what is missing in that picture? Sorry? First 3 rungs to go up the stairs. It's virtually impossible. That is the life of a lot of people living in poverty. No hope in sight. Generations upon generations living in a chronic cycle of poverty, disease, malnutrition, lack of education, lack of clean water, hunger, corruption, with no hope. A world without opportunity looks like that. A world filled with opportunity looks like that. Now a person living in poverty can begin to make that one step. Access to a microloan. They can start a business. They can begin to dream, to educate themselves, to educate their children, to save a little bit of money. If you can imagine, every step, every financial service we offer at Opportunity is a step up the ladder. Working their way out of poverty, not with a handout. Insurance, another step up the ladder. But guess what? Each of you can play a role in adding those steps, in providing that opportunity. That's what that life looks like. These steps lead to sustainable livelihoods, not just a temporary change, because it's not a handout. They enable those that are living in poverty to reach higher. So an opportunity for every dollar you give, in 5 years, we have $6. Is that proper math? Catch me after this and ask me how that happens. But it is the gift that keeps giving. And this is how you can get involved. Actually, maybe not some of you in this group, but there's a group of Hills Angels that visited our work in Colombia about 5 years ago. Visited our clients in Colombia, and I have some reports back there, an updated report of our work in Colombia. So, like Tom Hill shared at the beginning, this group has, by default, adopted Opportunity International as the international charity of choice. So thank you for the support you give us. Visit our website, go on the trips. We have trips every year to various countries, you know, the 22 countries we are in. Come and see poverty firsthand. Smell, touch, interact. And more than that, come and see the power of microfinance. So thank you very much. I have a table back there. Feel free to get information. I'll stay behind and, you know, interact. Some of you have said you have questions for me, but I'll stay behind and I can answer, you know, your questions. So thank you. Thank you, Tom.
I shouldn't belch like that, should I? Several things about Opportunity International, and the statistics I've always carried with me are things that I like about it, why we support it so much, is one, it's not a gift, it's a loan. You're loaning on the last I heard, around $200. There's like a 98, 99% payback of that money. About 90% do go to women. Gary Baker, Dan Krause, and I don't know who all went to Colombia a few years ago. These savings are done generally by smartphones. They don't have banks like we
Some
know.
places do have banks, but in
They're
the
mobile
rural
banks.
areas, yeah, they do. Some places have banks, sorry. But in the rural areas where it doesn't make sense to put up a building, the cell phone is their banking asset, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what you see is what you get. It's a real deal. It really, I'm 100% convinced. There's lots of different ways. Several Hills Angels have been governors. Is it still 5,000?
5,000 is a governor's level gift.
And I've been to a few of those meetings, and it is the caliber of people you want to hang around. You think you want to associate with, like a Rich McClure or whoever.
Those of you from St. Louis, Rich McClure, I'm sure some of you know Rich. He's actually a board member at Opportunity International. And before I forget, we have our annual summit next weekend in Chicago. So for those of you who happen to be in Chicago next weekend, you're welcome. I can give you more information about that.
And your new CEO is a real deal.
He's from India, Atul Tandon. Used to work for World Vision, worked for Citibank. He was very highly placed with Citibank, which is what Citibank brought him to the US about 25 years ago. So he's worked in various other charities. And now he's the CEO of Opportunity.
So if you have any questions, be sure to let me know, let Lillian know. But it is making a huge difference in the whole concept of being able to end poverty.
In our lifetime.
Staggering. Let's hear it again for Lillian. All right, Dr. Roger Hall, come on up. Let's welcome Roger. I think Terry has your microphone. First of all, for those who are new, quite a few new ones here, who's Roger Hall? Where'd you grow up? What's your background, real quick?
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, the son of a professor of agriculture and a mom who stayed at home. I have one sister. I have three grown children, 19, 24, and 27, who live in Cincinnati, Denver, and Los Angeles. My wife, Patty, and I have been married for 3 years, and we live just outside of Boise, Idaho.
Why Boise?
Because I can.
Who's been to Boise? How many people have been to Boise? I don't know, more than I thought maybe. Been to Boise.
People ask me where I live, and I say Idaho, and they're one of two reactions. Oh. and those are people who haven't been, and then there's, oh, and those are people who have.
And your PhD is from?
From Ohio State.
In?
Psychology. I am a psychologist.
Okay. You blog?
I blog. I have an every other week blog called Roger's 2 Cents. I have a daily quote called The Daily Dose of Mental Marinade. So those are my things that come out.
Okay. Roger and Brad are the two official Hills Angels coaches, which we're going to take to 120. That's another story. So I've asked Roger to do me a favor. So Roger, go sit down. And Neely, come on up. Let's hear it for Dr. Shaw. Maybe set it over there by Roger. Oh, no, I just, here. I'll give you this when I get through. So just separate Roger. John, have you ever gone to a meeting and met somebody for the first time and you just felt connected? The chemistry was there. Isn't that interesting how that happens? I've talked to, I know, over 10,000 vintage members in 11 countries, and how most of them just routine, everything goes along fine. And then there's always a few, and some of you in this room, Craig Hughes is one of them, and Ralph, who's going to speak tomorrow night. You just feel an instant connection, and that's the way I was with Neely, and particularly the way he described how he pronounced his first name. But his background, what he's doing, how he ended up in New York and all that. So I thought it'd be a little bit fun not to tell Roger too much about Neely and have Roger interview him. Like Roger's saying, I want to know you. You know, tell me your background. Why in the world is Tom so impressed with you? So Roger, the ball is in your court. Huh?
How long? I mean, I can do this for hours.
When I stand up.
Oh. So as you know, my job is just to ask people personal questions, and it doesn't bother me. So how much do you weigh and how old are you? That's usually where I start. So Neely, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm a neurologist in private practice in New York City. I'm lucky enough to be in a place where tons of people converge from all sorts of backgrounds, and it gives me access to really try to make differences in a variety of ways.
Okay, so what's a neurologist?
I'm a specialist of the brain, so the bread and butter of our field is headaches, back pain, carpal tunnel, things like that. I happen to be a specialist in epilepsy and multiple sclerosis, so I sit on the board for the National MS Society, and I do research there, and I do clinical trials and research, as well as see patients.
Okay, and so Tom, in full disclosure, I did ask him some questions at the table. What else do you do?
I sit on the board for the ballet. I sit on the board of a gun violence organization, or not anti-gun violence, promote gun violence. And I try to do a lot of things that utilize my skill set. I found that, in school growing up in Buffalo, I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, I would always get in trouble for talking to kids. And all over, I'd be all over the classroom, the teacher could never catch up with me, and I'd be speaking to people, it didn't matter who it was, and the problem was, I'd have my homework done and then I'd be distracting everyone. But I found that skill, I could use it to my advantage, and my ADD to my advantage, and my special skill, my superpower, I guess, is going around and really networking with all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds and bringing them together for what they do best. So once I meet somebody, I think I'm learning from Tom a little bit that, you file them away, and then, maybe 6 months later, maybe 6 years later, you're like, ooh, I know somebody that can help you with this and that. And I've been doing that for years, and in the melting pot that New York is, I've been able to advance many causes through those interactions and relationships. So that's what I do best, basically, in a nutshell. It's a very generic way of saying it, but I've created all sorts of companies that make money, charitable organizations, all through just relationships and doing what God has put us on this planet for, is, really just make sure every life you touch, every single day, you make it positive, not negative.
So at the table, you told me that medicine was now a hobby. So tell me more about that.
So I went to school for many, many years to become a neurologist. I did my residency and then a fellowship, and so extra years and extra training. And so when you invest that much into a career, you really want to keep doing it as long as it makes sense. Unfortunately, in our country right now, the healthcare system is completely broken. From the inside out, from the ground up, there's no way of looking at it except for knowing that it is completely broken. So, as a physician with $250,000 in loans for med school, I couldn't pay the bills and take care of patients the way I want to. So, early in my career, I started up with software startups and created companies that would actually generate at least enough money for me to live. And then I started seeing patients without worrying about the billing. And so instead of the average doctor where you sit for 2 hours and they have 70 patients in a day, I'm happy to see 15 to 20 patients. And if they don't have insurance, I don't bill them. And if they are self-pay, they declare themselves as self-pay, I say, what do you want to pay? They're like, $20? I'm like, we'll make it $5. Because fortunately for me, I don't have that direct tie, and I think that's one of the unethical areas of healthcare, almost, in the sense that our reimbursement is tied to seeing 1 billion patients a day, and that's not doing anyone any favors. So early in my career, I learned that, and got lucky enough to start my road to financial independence in other ways. Also, I learned that every doctor I've met doesn't retire. They keep working. You see the 90-year-old psychologist coming into the hospital until they die. So I don't have to save. So I don't have to save for retirement. I decided, since I'm never going to retire, as long as you do what you love, make enough, put some away, but I'm going to keep generating something somehow, so I don't have to work like a madman.
Okay, so I'm going to go down a path, and then I'll come back to something else we talked about. You said the healthcare system is fundamentally broken. And everyone has an opinion, but since you work in the field, I'll let you say, from your opinion, what are some ways to fix it?
Ooh, this could get political. No, I think that one of the things that we do wrong is we tie reimbursements to procedures, for example. So if you go to a doctor and they sit with you for an hour and a half talking to you, they get paid $40. But the second they stick a needle in you and it takes 2 seconds, that's $100 there, $100 there, you know, for like pain injections. That's a messed up system. We're getting incentivized for the wrong things. I think we should be incentivized for keeping people healthy. It's health care, not sick care. Right now we're in a sick care model.
Well, you successfully avoided politics. But I appreciate you saying that we're incentivizing people for the wrong behavior, that this is a sick care business, not a health care business. So I want to take down another alley, which was, you talked about a couple software companies, and it seems like, you know, everybody with a pulse has a software company now. So tell me about the work that you're doing in your software companies.
So one of the companies that we're pitching right now is working with Medicare. And Medicare has a program since 2015 that helps doctors take better care of their sickest patients. So it's called chronic care management. And for chronically ill patients that have 2 or more conditions, Medicare is allowing doctors to bill Medicare $50 a month for 20 minutes of non-face-to-face time. Physicians, especially primary care and family practice docs, work their butt off. They're the gatekeepers to the whole healthcare system. They're the lowest paid, and yet they're the quarterbacks of your health. So in this model, doctors are paid without even seeing the patient. Like, okay, if you're spending 40 minutes on the phone with an insurance company fighting for your patient, finally you can start billing for that. Not a whole heck of a lot. $50, $70, depending on how many minutes you put in. But you don't have to see the patient, but you document that you've taken care of the patient in a way that will fundamentally help their health. Doctor has 1,000 patients that are on Medicare. That could be $50,000 a month in extra income for what was previously unpaid work. And that will change the whole formula of keeping patients out of hospitals, keeping them from getting further sick. And what we do is we make that job a lot easier, because Medicare, like every government institution, has its own boxes you have to check off, and doctors don't have time for that. So our software does pretty much all of that in an automated fashion, and really helps what we call a win-win-win. The patient wins because they've got now a concierge service with their doctor. The doctor wins because they can take better care of their patients without having to spend too much more time on it. And the healthcare system wins because for 1,000 patients, Medicare pays the doctor $50,000, but if they save 3 hospitalizations, that's $100,000 saved or something like that. So our whole society wins just by taking better care of our sickest individuals.
Excellent. Now, you have a second one that does something a little bit different. Tell me about that one.
It's a functional evaluation company. Basically, when somebody, for example, gets hurt, how do we know that they're getting better? So what we do is, at the time of your injury, we do testing that is computerized and objective on muscle strength and range of motion, and really say that, okay, your arm is at 70% the norm, your back is at 20% the norm. And then you go through physical therapy or you go through a surgery, and then we retest you. And then we can say, okay, your arm went from 30% to 70% through 6 weeks of physical therapy, so we're in the right direction. Let's do a little bit more. So what happens is the testing, unfortunately, there's so many shysters out there that charge so much money to the healthcare system for this. The way we've structured it, it's only $100 or $200 per test. It's a volume-based business for us. But that small spend at the front end helps us decide later on. Insurance companies can look at it, you know, if they have a patient go through every 6 weeks for 3 or 4 tests. Okay, these physical therapists consistently are not doing their job, so let's stop paying them. Or this person did really well after just 1 set of treatments, and all that doctor's patients are doing that well, so we reward them. And the cost overall to society, to the insurance companies, is at the end of the day a couple $100, but it can weed out all the bad players that literally cost millions or hundreds of millions of dollars to the system.
So it's a day and a half of neurology, and running these businesses is the rest. It sounds like you have some other interests. Tell us about, family, where, growing up in Buffalo, were you a Bills fan? Was it hard for you most of your life?
It's still hard for me.
So tell us about your family and growing up.
So I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. That's where my father landed for his first job with General Motors. He grew up in India, in a small village north of Bombay, about 200 miles. Dirt poor. He picked cotton as a child. I visited those cotton fields. But he worked his butt off. And he was on the Indian equivalent of the SATs, the #1 kid out of 1 billion people. Came to Stanford on a full ride, worked his butt off, became the best guy in his field of engineering. And so we lived a very comfortable middle-class life. I mean, my dad, at his peak, made $70,000 a year, but because he was so good, he parlayed that into conferences where he would teach all over the world. So by the time I was 18, I'd been to 80 countries and seen the world in ways that educated me about what the possibilities are. So from there, when I was younger, starting in like 3rd grade, my dad's like, "Where's your Nobel Prize?" I'm like, "Seriously?" He's like, "Look what I did." So it was, it was a little rough. But I took the SATs.
There's still time.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna happen. But I took my SATs in 5th grade because he made me, and my brother and I started at the University of Buffalo in calculus as a little 6th grader, and annoyed all the freshmen because we busted the curve. And
you were the guy.
Yeah. So and long story short, so my father really pushed us. Mom raised us really well. I have a twin brother. I'm the black sheep of the family because I have yet to do more. My father, as I said, did so much. Even though it wasn't in this field, he put up the first communication satellite for India and all sorts of other things, and he's given so much back to India. My twin brother was the youngest commissioner of health for the state of New York. Now he's the COO at Kaiser Permanente out in California. So I've got a little bit more to achieve to catch up.
So tell me, we were at the table and you had an idea about your big goal. So tell me about who challenged you, how that started, and tell me where it is now.
Sure. A very good friend of mine, I met this young lady at my 5th year college reunion. We were in college together, never met, but we met at the 5th year reunion, became fast friends. One of the coolest persons I know. Her actual title right now is Minister of Awesome for New Zealand. She started the Ministry of Awesome. It's crazy. She lives in Christchurch, and back in 2008, she decided that she was going to speak at the main stage of TED in Long Beach in 2010. She mapped her way back to where she was, figured it out. 2 years later, she was on the main stage. 3 days before she went on the main stage, Christchurch had its big earthquake. 90% of her hometown was destroyed, infrastructure was destroyed. She got special permission from the TED folks to change her talk, which is very unusual. She spoke about urban redevelopment, cities 2.0, how we can create a better urban structure. And that generated 3 weeks later a new TEDx conference in Christchurch in one of the destroyed high schools, and generated $100 million to help kickstart her ideas of revitalizing the city in a way that takes into account nature and the wind patterns and the mountains and the trees and every element to make sure that man has the minimal impact on the footprint of the earth. A few years later, she came to New York to say, "What are you doing with your life?" And I said, "I want to help 1 million people before I die." And she was like, "That's good. How are you doing so far?" I'm like, I see patients every day, and She's like, "That's not good enough."
She sounds like your dad.
Basically, yeah. It's probably why I respect her so much. So she goes away, comes back a year later, we go see some Broadway show, have some drinks afterwards, and then she challenges me again. "So how are you doing on that?" I'm like, "I'm doing all right." She's like, "Well, do 10 million. I'm like, "Oh, man." And then she goes away, comes back a year later, she's like, how are you on that 10 million? I'm like, well, I put up a hospital in Grenada, that's 100,000. Built a house in my dad's village, that's 100,000. I helped pass these bills at New York State. She's like, so you're gonna hit 10 million before you die? I'm like, I hope so. And then she told me that to affect change in any population, you have to hit one person and 10 people are affected. So in a village of 100, if you directly impact 10 lives, you're gonna help the whole village. So she told me that I need to change the world. And so by the time I die, the population will be somewhere between 9 and 10 billion, theoretically. So I have to touch 1 billion lives before I die. So I took up that challenge, and I'm gonna make it happen.
So in this little corner of the world, we're just trying to touch 1 million, so we really got to get our game up. So you told us about your family of origin. Do you currently have a family?
Yeah, I have a wife and a dog back home in New York.
A wife and a dog. So what kind of dog?
A little Shih Tzu Maltese.
All right, all right. What's one thing that we should know about you that can help us change the world for the better, to help you on your way to 1 billion people? Something about what you're trying to do.
I think that what I've learned in my journeys, in my 45 years already on this planet, is that everybody I've met is amazing. They may not realize it and you may not see it in them, but if you keep poking in a nice way, everybody has amazing inside them, and you just have to find it and work with it and make partnerships out of pretty much everybody.
And you're doing one-to-one work as a neurologist, you're doing work with your software company and charitable work. How do you want to spread that idea? How do you plan to reach those 1 billion people? What's the mechanism for spreading all that?
I think just keep touching lives, directly and indirectly touching lives. I mean, in many different ways, whether it's directly in my patient care or, I'm in Washington, D.C. yelling at our congressmen and women, hoping to touch lives through those actions. It's just remembering the mission, I guess. I've created this mission for myself because I've been to the poorest parts of India, and I've been to the poorest parts of other countries in the world. I was in Haiti right after the earthquake, and people died in my arms. And once you've lived through those experiences, you can't forget how blessed you are. I mean, we have everything here. I don't have to worry about food. I don't have to worry about a roof. I don't have to worry about anything. And these simple little things that can profoundly change a life, it's so easy for us that we take it for granted. And I think that we got to forget that and forget that burden and just let it go and just remember how precious every life is and how easy it is to make a difference.
Tell us a story. I mean, you traveled, you said, to 80 countries? How many countries are there? About 100?
180, I think.
100. Yeah, so 100 to go. And Antarctica. You've been there? Been there, done that. You're like a Mountain Dew commercial. Tell us a story. I mean, in all those travels, what's a memory from a country, take your pick, that has stuck with you that influences your daily life today?
A simple one is when I was in Haiti. I'm going to go long into this story just because friends of mine said, let's go help. So we grabbed a bunch of cash, stole a bunch of supplies from the hospitals we worked at, and jumped on planes. Got on the ground there, hired guys with machine guns to protect us because it was a chaotic situation. and set up a tent hospital in Port-au-Prince. First day, we helped maybe 500-600 people from everything, surgeries, minor surgeries, gave them a month's supplies of their medications, everything. Then in the evening, we closed the doors around 5:30, so out of curiosity, we went to the main hospital in Port-au-Prince, and there we saw these 2 big Greyhound buses. The buses had a bunch of doctors from Harvard, from Partners in Health, getting on, and they were going to be going to the Dominican Republic, which is on the same island, but was unaffected. So they were going to go for the night and stay at a resort. I'm like, oh wow, that's great. You guys are doing this good work. And I'm like, so who's doing the night shift? So they had decided that they had 2 residents, which are doctors in training with them, would be covering the night shift. 70 trained doctors during the day, so they can say they were in Haiti, were leaving 2 junior training doctors behind. Crap. I was like, this is not acceptable. So I said, okay, do you mind if we help? They're like, we don't care. So I went to the front of the hospital, took over. We had the U.S. military helping us out, triaging people, keeping us safe. 3 hours later, my gang of 6 other friends walking into the main part of the hospital. And I'm like, wait, weren't you guys back there? They're like, no, we went for dinner. And I'm like, oh. But, so they stayed the night, and we stayed the night till 6 in the morning when the Harvard doctors came back. Then we went back to our tent hospital, opened it up all day long, then came back for 5 days in a row. I slept, I think, a total of an hour in 5 days, running on adrenaline. There were 3 or 4 Haitian students with us that were working with us, and they were by my side helping me do spinal taps, doing whatever it took. And by the 4th day, I was like, you guys are amazing. Can you, why don't you rotate out and send some others? And they're like, well, on the day of the earthquake, we were running a little late. We carpooled together. I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, see that building? And there was a collapsed building there and another collapsed building there. Like, that building, every one of our teachers and classmates. That building, all the other doctors that work at the hospital. Everybody's dead, and we could smell them decomposing slowly. So these were the only students left alive. I lost it at that moment. And then this was all they had left. They had lost their families, and they'd lost all their classmates. And that's when I realized that, again, thinking back to my life in New York and how blessed I am, that this is just, people have it so much more harder than me. And I always think back to those students and how they just gave it their all and just didn't stop when in the face of everything that they know gone, they could have easily just given up and collapsed to the ground and melted away, and they just kept going. And if those kids could do that, with me having all this support and nothing going wrong practically, there's no reason I should stop. I'm wasting my time if I'm watching TV for too many hours or something. I gotta keep pushing, I gotta keep moving.
You remind yourself of those students, and they had lost everything. What do you think it was in them that kept them going? I mean, you have their memory. What made them different than people who would have just run away and taken a nap?
I think that strength of character comes from a spiritual place that we can't fully define, but we just have to accept.
Are there any questions anybody else would like to ask? All right. Well, thank you very much.
back to your table assignments. Get your table together. This table needs one more person, Dave. You and Carl. I want you to select 2 people at your table. One to be the facilitator. Dan, you're with me.